Relax. Piano, piano.
До слова запрошується адмірал Борис Кожин.
Високоповажний пан Барон, прошу до мене сюди. Дорогі друзі, побратими, співвітчизники, дозвольте від усієї душі палки сердечно вітати вас. І сьогодні в такий файний день ще один такий мосточок між Україною і Німеччиною. Дозвольте від щирого адміральського серця вручити пану барону ЮХТЕРу таку нагороду. Слава військово-морським силам України! Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
До слова запрошується професор Моріц Кунцінгер.
Madam Director, dear friends, Admiral, Mr. Young.
Пані директор, шановні друзі, пан адмірал.
I'm very happy to be here again as your honorary doctor.
Дуже радий знову побувати сьогодні як в якості почесного доктора.
And I enjoy that our world is so small today.
Мені подобається, що наш світ сьогодні такий малий.
Just recently I met the German commander of the Navy, who is a dear friend of me.
Нещодавно я зустрів командувача військово-морських сил Німеччини, який є моїм другом.
And I told him that I'm visiting this institute today and I will meet Admiral Koshin, and he asked me to overbring his warmest greetings to Admiral.
І я йому сказав, що я сьогодні буду в Інституті агроекології, що я буду зустрічатися з першим командувачем військово-морських сил України, і він передає адміралу Борису Кожину свої найщиріші вітання.
I would have never met you all, including the heads of this institute, without Admiral Koshin.
Нікого з вас би я і не зустрів, включаючи керівництво цього інституту, без Бориса Кожина.
Now I'm passing on and enlarging this network by introducing to you my dear friend Bob, who is the Baron from БЕРГЕН, КВАСТ, from the Netherlands.
А сьогодні я розширюю це коло друзів і представляю вам сьогодні свого друга Боба, барона Рудольфа, Андріса, Ульриха, ЮХТЕРа, БЕРГЕНа, КВАСТа.
And he and I have a very good relationship also with friends from Dragomanov University, where I am active since more than 10 years as a professor.
Разом з ним у нас вже також багато друзів в університеті, Національному педагогічному університеті імені Драгоманова, в якому я вже понад 10 років є почесним доктором та професором.
Just recently I introduced the heads of your institute to a visitor of the Dragomanov University, which is the Duke of Portugal.
Нещодавно я представив керівництво вашого інституту гостям, які нещодавно відвідали університет Драгоманова. Це був герцог Браганца.
The Duke of Portugal, Duke of Braganza's family founded Portugal and Brazil.
Герцог Браганци, їхня родина заснувала такі країни, як Португалія та Бразилія.
So they are entrepreneurs too.
І ще вони є підприємцями.
Just imagine, dear Mr. Pieter ДЕ ЙОНГ from Microsoft, what would have happened if they would have had your software 1000 years ago.
Якщо б у них був ваше програмне забезпечення, чого б вони досягли.
So we enlarge our network.
Тому ми збільшуємо нашу мережу.
By adding this very charming senior representative of a family who founded two extremely powerful and interesting nations.
Тому ми розширюємо це коло такими чудовими людьми, які заснували такі великі країни, як Бразилія та Португалія.
3 of his cousins will visit my university in the next year.
3 двоюрідні брати герцога-браганці наступного року відвідуватимуть
And
Україну.
your institute is heartily invited to meet them.
І ваш інститут також запрошується на цю зустріч.
To meet the Royal Prince of Italy, Emanuele Filiberto,
Зустрітися з принцем Італії Еммануелем Філібертом,
the Chancellor of Italy, Johannes Theo Niederhauser,
канцлером Італії Йоганнесом Нідергаузером,
the Deputy Head of the House of Habsburg, Lorraine, Archduke Joseph Konrad,
та заступником королівського дому Габсбургів Лотарингів Карла Йозефа Габсбурга,
whose family governed a part of Ukraine a long time ago.
чия сім'я також колись багато років назад правила частиною України.
And the first one and only monarch in the world who is a Tsar, a king, and a freely elected Prime Minister of his country, Simeon II of Bulgaria.
Ще ми запросимо першого царя, діючого царя, який в свій час став прем'єр-міністром своєї країни Болгарії, це Симеон II.
They all are cousins.
І вони всі двоюрідні брати.
These noble families are interactive all over the world.
Їхні сім'ї, вони взаємодіють по всьому світу.
And they get children.
І у них з'являються діти.
And their active representatives will be our guests, as you all will be our guests.
І активні представники цих сімей, вони будуть нашими гостями, і ви також будете гостями на цих зустрічах.
So being in my industry, networking, I am feeling quite comfortable that we all meet again in the year 2022 on 3 interesting occasions.
Тому сподіваюся, що наступного року ми зустрінемося з вами на 3 заходах, де будуть представлені ці гості. Ви будете членами нашого кругу.
So we see each other again. All the very best.
Тому ще знову побачимось з вами. Всього найкращого.
Дякую, професор Морец. Дякую. Шановні колеги, у нас перед тим, як я представлю нашим гостям коротку екскурс нашого інституту, коротесеньку доповідь, я хочу з вашого дозволу вручити почесну грамоту президії Національної академії аграрних наук України, заступника директора з наукової роботи Інституту агроекології і природокористування, член-кореспондента НААН Дем'янюк Олену Сергіївну.
Дякую. Свято пройшло і свято повертається.
Нагороди чекають достойних.
Дякую.
Дозвольте мені коротко представити інформацію про діяльність нашого інституту. Шановні колеги, дорогі наші гості, шановні, Інститут агроекології і природокористування Національної академії аграрних наук України є провідною науковою дослідною установою з питань визначення засад державної і науково-технічної політики в галузі агроекології, раціонального природокористування та охорони навколишнього природного середовища. Основними векторами діяльності інституту є науково-дослідна робота, кадрове забезпечення, видавнича діяльність, фінансова, організаційна, міжнародна та громадсько-політична діяльність. Національним агентством з акредитації України акредитовано незалежну лабораторію екології лісівництва, що засвідчує її компетентність у сфері сфері визначення показників якості насіння сортів сільськогосподарських культур європейського рівня, а також відділ агроекології і біобезпеки, який здійснює біологічну та екологічну оцінку засобів захисту рослин, агрохімікатів, регуляторів росту рослин та інших. Особлива увага в інституті поділяється підготовці наукових кадрів вищої кваліфікації. Активно розвиваються наукові школи, академіків, член-кореспондентів, професорів Олександра Таравіка, Ореста Фурдичка, Дмитра Добряка, Олени Шерстобоєвої, Алли Парфенюк, Олени Дем'янюк, Григорія Чоботька, Василя Коніщука та інших. На даному етапі Інститут агроекології Національної академії аграрних наук проводить дослідження за такими науковими напрямами: науково-методичне забезпечення екологічно безпечного використання агробіоресурсів, біологічна безпека в рослинництві і тваринництві, супутниковий моніторинг деграційних процесів агроландшафтних, супутниковий моніторинг процесів опустелювання зональних агроландшафтів, визначення ерозійної деградації агроландшафтів, механізмів збалансованого природокористування в агросфері з врахуванням системної дії космічних чинників, прогнозування впливу змін клімату на продуктивність зернових культур, аналіз результатів супутникового і наземного моніторингу водозабезпечення агроекосистем. Ще одною науковою діяльністю це є ефіроолійні, лікарські та пряно-ароматичні рослини. І економіка природного користування, основи збалансованого природокористування агросфери в контексті євроінтеграції України, менеджмент природних територій агросфери України, збалансований розвиток агровиробництва та сільських територій в Україні. Щорічно в Україні проводяться науково-практичні конференції «Екологічна безпека та збалансоване природокористування в агропромисловому виробництві», лікарські рослини, традиції та перспективи досліджень, збалансоване природокористування, традиції, перспективи та інновації, а також круглі столи та семінари. Інститут підтримує тісні зв'язки з установами Національної академії аграрних наук, має договори про співпрацю з питань агроекології, раціонального природокористування та охорони навколишнього природного середовища. Інститут агроекології і природокористування проводить активну міжнародну діяльність, він є членом міжнародних організацій. В інституті створено технічний комітет із стандартизації ТК-175 «Сталий розвиток суспільства». В нашому інституті акредитовано 3 освітньо-наукових програми 3-го рівня підготовки докторів філософії та отримано сертифікати, які чинні до 2026 року. За такими спеціальностями: 051 – економіка, 101 – екологія та 201 – агрономія. Інститут є засновником і видавцем 2 фахових періодичних видань «Агроекологічний журнал» та «Збалансоване природокористування», які включені до категорії Б відповідно до наказу Міністерства освіти і науки України. Інститутом приділяється значна увага громадській діяльності, особливо у напрямку агроекології, економіки природокористування та охорони навколишнього середовища. 12 листопада 2021 року Інститут агроекології і природокористування під егідою програми фонду «Івроше» Інституту Франції «Озеленимо планету разом» провів 5-ту ювілейну виставку, ювілейну акцію висадки 100 дерев в рамках міжнародного проєкту фонду «Івроше», генеральний директор Анна Заплатова, разом з Всеукраїнською громадською організацією Асоціація агроекології України та працівників природного заповідника Древлянський, представників громадських організацій, представників райдержадміністрацій у селі Рудня-Калинівка Народицького району Житомирської області. Інститут співпрацює з низкою громадських організацій, зокрема Асоціація агроекології України, Представництвом першого командувача Військово-морських сил України, віце-адмірала Бориса Кожина, народного депутата України, Екологічну асоціацію Західне Полісся, Заболочений край, Волинська область, Громадська рада, Міністерство екології та природних ресурсів України, Українська екологічна асоціація Зелений світ тощо. Інститут агроекології активно веде міжнародну співпрацю з вищими навчальними закладами, науковими установами, зокрема Лісотехнічний університет Софія, Болгарія, Жешувський університет, Республіка Польща, факультет економіки Кобе-Гакуїнського університету, місто Осака, Японія, Словацького аграрного університету, Федеральним науково-дослідним інститутом сільських територій лісу та рибальства, Швейцарським федеральним інститутом дослідження лісу, снігу та ландшафтів, Швейцарія, університетом Вітауса Великого, місто Каунас, Литовська Республіка та низкою міжнародних компаній. Особлива увага приділяється входженню інституту до європейського дослідницького простору та інтеграція науково-інноваційної системи України. Підвищення науково-освітнього громадського потенціалу співробітників і аспірантів. Поліпшення матеріально-технічної бази та розширення дослідної мережі та залучення інвестицій. Наш інститут завжди готовий до співпраці, до міжнародної співпраці, до зустрічей і до підвищення рівня здобутків наших вчених. Вашій увазі представляється колектив, у нас є підключені в онлайні, тому з вашого дозволу я хочу запросити до слова барона Рудольфа Андріса Ульріх ЮХТЕРа БЕРГЕН КВАСТа із темою лекції «Від вченого до підприємця. Дорожня мапа». Будь ласка.
Thank you very much for attending. Really honored to be here, and it's a real pleasure to be here in the Ukraine. It's my first time, and I'm really enjoying it already on the first day. So thank you very much for your welcome. I am the CEO of the Swiss Chamber of Commerce in the Netherlands, and in that capacity we have a lot of dealings with startups and companies in the growth phase. So we focus on attracting investors for startups, and we also focus on business development. So we help companies in the growth phase, and we help startups to grow further to become successful businesses. The lecture I will be giving today is about it's a roadmap for becoming an entrepreneur, for growing from scientist to entrepreneur. So when you're a scientist and you want to become an entrepreneur, this will give you some, this will be a roadmap towards that, to achieving that goal. I will first start with a success story about a lovely lady who I know very well. She was a mathematician. She became a very successful entrepreneur. Then I will proceed with the roadmap for becoming an entrepreneur, and then finally, keeping the best part for the end. It will be Microsoft who will be talking about what Microsoft can do and is doing already in Ukraine and is doing for educational institutions. So it's very, very interesting. I will start with the success story, which I hope will be a stimulus for all of you. It's a story of Ria Prasad. Ria Prasad was a very intelligent mathematician, a very successful mathematician, and she invented a way to predict, make long-term weather forecasts. So when we forecast the weather, we can predict it more or less 1 or 2 weeks. That's also already very long. Her invention was to predict the weather for 1 or 2 months. So that's a very long period ahead. The problem she had was she wanted to create a business based on this invention, based on this innovation. Her problem was that there was no way to make a lot of money by predicting weather. So that was a big issue. It's not a very lucrative business, predicting the weather. So what she did, so the first innovation was actually predicting the long-term weather. The second innovation was the business model. She applied this innovation, her invention, she applied it to banking, which is a very creative way of thinking. It turns out that some financial instruments, I'm not going to go into all the details, but some financial instruments are highly related to the weather, and that's the energy, and related financial instruments related to the energy market. When the weather when it becomes cold, the energy prices go up, and that's for banks is that a very interesting financial instrument to actually invest in and to make money from. So her invention was to create this long-term business forecast on the one hand, and the other innovation was to apply this particular way of forecasting, applying it to banking. That was a very impressive way of her business. So I will start first. Of course, when you're a scientist, you do a lot of research. The entrepreneurial mindset is what you need to have. You need to develop an entrepreneurial mindset which is a can-do, practical mentality. So you have to be very confident. You have to very much focus on the result, on the outcome, and not go into all the details for now. Because as a researcher, you're used to investigating all the details. This is not about the details. This is about a long-term, making a long-term prediction about your own business. Also, would like to start with a saying of our president of the Swiss Chamber of Commerce in the Netherlands. He says, "The winners have a plan, the losers have explanation." So I came too late because I missed the bus. And well, losers have explanation. Winners have a plan, always a plan to become successful. That's very. For me, it's a very important guidance actually. Another part of the entrepreneurial mindset is the creative moment. So you need a creative moment to create a business. So it has to be that you have to look and search for a creative moment. You can stimulate that by talking to people, reading, watching television. It needs to be come in a natural way actually. Be careful that the creative moment doesn't turn you into a dreamer. So you have to structure this creative moment as well. It has to be a very good structured thought before you start actually developing the business. Another part of the entrepreneurial mindset is that you have to really love what you do. Don't start a business because you think it might be interesting, make you a lot of money. Which you don't like. You have to really think about something you really like to do, you really enjoy to do. Otherwise, business will fail at the end because you cannot show people how your passion. You have to really show people how passionate you are about your business, and that's the way to attract other successful factors. So you have the entrepreneurial mindset. What you need to do first, actually, what I think you need to do first is you have to create a network which is not so difficult to do. It's not so difficult. You start because Microsoft has an enormous facility for creating networks. It's called LinkedIn. A lot of you know it already. You start with building a very, very good LinkedIn profile. It has to be, every detail has to be thought of. It takes a lot of time. You don't do it in an hour. It takes days to create a good LinkedIn profile. And but keep in mind that people will look at your profile and think and get a first impression about yourself as an entrepreneur, and your personality. So it's very important that you create a very good and solid LinkedIn profile. Also, reach out, go to events, attend online events, and don't stay in the same circle. You will not, as you are here, you will not become a successful business person when you stay among yourselves. You have to reach out and think internationally. Don't think Ukraine is not enough. You have to think about reaching out to Europe, to the United States. You have to really build an international network. So don't stay local. What you also need is it's crucial to have a good business partner. Well, we all know the iPhone, we all know Apple. The story of Apple was actually, there were two Steves, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. Steve Wozniak was the scientist, was the programmer, the computer programmer. Steve Wozniak was the marketeer. It was more or less a coincidence that the two met. It was a coincidence. It was actually the birth, of course, of one of the biggest multinational big tech firms in the world. It was the creation of Apple. It was because the two met. If that meeting would not have taken place, we would not have the iPhone and the iPad, etc. We would never heard of Apple. So finding a good business partner is very, very important. The third part, creating a successful business, is actually, it's all these items I'm mentioning are very, very important. The business plan is perhaps the most important part of creating a successful business. The business plan is the roadmap to success. I mentioned that you need a creative moment, but I also mentioned you need to structure your creativity, and you do that by creating a business plan. So a business plan is not like a few pages on think about how successful you become. A business plan goes into a lot of details. A business plan is 40, 50, perhaps even more pages of all the details that you can think of regarding your business. Also keep in mind that the business plan is there to attract investors, to attract clients, to attract business partners. So it's not only about structuring your own creativity, it's also about attracting success. So the business plan is we're going to go into the business plan in a bit. What needs to be and what do you need to put into the business plan? The business plan, the most important part of the business plan is actually the summary. The business plan starts with the summary because investors, clients, they all get a lot of business plans. They all get a lot of ideas. They meet people. They talk to people. They all so they have to be very selective regarding business plans. So the first part, the executive summary of the business plan, is very, very important. You need to write it really think about how to persuade an investor, how to persuade a client, how to persuade a business partner within one A4 page. The executive summary needs to contain the problem. the problem that your company is going to solve. So, and this should not be, this should be a very serious problem. It should be a commercial problem. It should be commercially interesting. I'm going to give you an example. We have a client that, of course, you know about Pfizer and all the big pharmacy companies. They have one big issue, which is that their medicines are copied, and that's very dangerous. So when I, for example, see a box which says Pfizer whatever medicine, I'm not entirely sure if it's an original or if it's a copy. So this company, that's a big problem. So that's what I'm talking about, a commercial interesting problem. The company that that we have dealings with, our client, he found a way to make visible the originality of the medicine. So any consumer can use his phone, check the code on the medicine, and they will see 100% if this is a genuine medicine. So the pharmacies, the pharmaceutical companies, they're very much interested in such an innovation, or solving such a problem. So that's what I mean by you have to think about a really good, interesting and commercial, interesting problem. Then what needs to be in the executive summary is there needs to be the return on investment. It has to persuade an investor immediately. I want to put my money in that company. That's what what it needs to trigger this business summary. So that was the first part of the business plan. What else needs to be in the business plan is the product or the service of course you're going to deliver. What I also often see is that products and services are described in either a very detailed, way too detailed way, or a very vague way. So you have to tell people what you actually do in a very simple, straightforward manner. What you also need to include when you describe your product or your service is what is the added value of the product. And I'm not talking about the added value to the company, I'm talking about the added value to the consumer, to the user of your product or service. It has to add value, and that can be in a lot of ways. What it also needs to address is the competitor. So why is your product different? It doesn't have to be cheaper, it doesn't have to be better. Why is it different? Why would a user choose your product? And that's not because it's cheaper. That's not because it's better. It might be anything. It could be, for example, because it's a fashion item, something like that, or affiliated with a film star. Anything, you have to be very think about it, very creative regarding that issue. Then the marketing and the sales. So the first problem is to define, as the marketing part, is to define who is your client, who is actually that particular person or company that is willing to buy my product or service. It has to be useful for that particular client, my product. So you have to think what he really needs, and that can be interesting because some people don't know what they need. For example, when I saw the first telephone that could make pictures, I thought, oh well, that's nuts. Who wants to have a telephone that makes pictures? It's ridiculous. But now I'm educated, and of course we're all educated. We all use the phone for pictures. We use it for it's a mini computer nowadays, the phones. So you can also educate the user. You can trigger some kind of need for the user. So when you have defined your particular user, your particular buyer of your product, that also becomes a very difficult part, which is how do I reach my client? How do I reach him? Of Of course, you can define your client as being a person who is a woman or a man or in a certain age group or has a certain interest in for example, education or interest in cars, anything. But how exactly are you going to reach your client? And it might take a lot of trial and error to become successful. It's what we also see is that when you adjust the business model a bit or the marketing a bit, a very little adjustment can mean the meaning between failure and success. So when you're not entirely successful at first, think about how to adjust the business model, how to adjust your marketing in order to become successful. Some minor adjustment might lead to a breakthrough. Then the financial part. The biggest danger of a company, the biggest threat for a company is to not be able to pay the bills. So the financial part of the business plan should contain a cash flow statement, a cash flow forecast. Am I as a company able to pay the salaries, the rent, which are the biggest expenses? And of course the research and the creation of the prototype, etc. of the company. How am I going to cover all these expenses? And that's a cash flow question. Also, you should keep in mind that a lot of people a lot of companies, they focus on creating a lot of revenue. Of course, that's very important, creating a lot of revenue, becoming big, but the profit is actually revenue and expenses are very much related. I think of them as actually being the same, expenses and revenue, because they don't matter actually. The only thing that matters is the profit. So that's the difference between the two of them. So if you decrease expenses, it has the same effect as increasing the revenues, which is harder. It's harder to increase revenues than to decrease expenses, often. Also, when you increase revenues, you need to increase expenses as well. So you have to think carefully, what do I want to achieve? The profit itself is should be the main focus, not the revenues or the expenses, the profits, the difference between the two of them. Then how the Swiss Chamber of Commerce in the Netherlands will help scientists here present to become an entrepreneur themselves. We have a business plan template on our website. When you go to our Chamber of Commerce website, you will find a very good template for a business plan. It's the template of the Maryland University we adopted, and it's a very solid way of actually developing a business plan. What we also do is, when we think of a company or a client as someone some company who has a high potential, has a serious people behind them, we help them to attract investors. But that's not what we do first. First, the business plan needs to be very, very solid, and some success has to be already proven. So there has to be some kind of track record of this particular company. We also have a free business directory where you can actually promote your business, so it's easier to find for people to more easily find you on the internet. And of course, then you have the relation with the Swiss Chamber of Commerce, which is also good for your reputation. Then what's also important is the international agreements. A lot of entrepreneurs, they make agreements themselves, which is very, very dangerous. So when you make international agreements, either you go to a rocket lawyer but you need some legal assistance. Go to a friend who is a lawyer, and don't depend on your own knowledge and expertise, because the law it can be very tricky, can be very dangerous to experiment with. If you have any questions, please approach us. Our email address is on our website. What I would like to do next is to, so you have the business plan, you have that, you have the ready, you have the entrepreneurial mindset, you have your network ready. How are you actually going to start generating money? What I already mentioned is you have to build a network. So not only a network of potential business partners and friends, of course, but this has to be a network of potential clients. You should not create a network of competitors, leave them out. Not create a network of colleagues, not interesting for your business. You should create a network of potential clients. You should reach out, that's the way to reach out to potential clients and get their feedback regarding your business plans, your business ideas. Also make sure that you that you share interesting information that trigger potential clients to come to you and ask you questions and to actually help you improve your first prototype. Think about how to develop the whole business model. Finally, of course, create for your company a LinkedIn profile, a LinkedIn company page. Company page on LinkedIn. It's very easy to do and gives you very good visibility. What we also see is some companies that have extraordinary business ideas, extraordinary people behind them, but they have a terrible website or even lack a website. So you have to make sure that your website is your visiting card, your profile on the web, on the international business community. So make sure that your website is very, very, very good. You have to make a very professional website. Don't let people know that you have a free website. It should be. You should invest in your website. Make it an impressive website. Make it a highly professional website. Also, create a blog so people can actually see what your progress is. They need to see what that actually things are happening. They need to see the activity in your company. So when I mentioned already Apple, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak getting together and having this great idea, starting with a kind of wooden computer, and now one of the most sophisticated high-tech companies in the world. It's when you have everything ready, when you have the business plan, you have the network of potential clients, etc. You need a solid business partner, like Steve Jobs met Steve Wozniak. You need that particular business partner. Don't think you can do it all on your own. It's mission impossible. You need the business partner, not a personality that is the same as you, but you need someone who is totally different than you. So the two of you should become much more successful together. It should be some kind of chemical reaction, the two of you. That doesn't happen when you put two people who are the same together. That will not work. This business partner of you, what's important is you have an agreement with him. You have an agreement with him, and you have to also what I also already mentioned, you have to make this agreement a very solid agreement, and you need legal help with that. Also, trust when you reach out to a business partner, trust your feeling. When you have a bad feeling about this potential business partner, don't go there. Search for another business partner. No matter how promising, how interesting, or how lucrative the chance might look, if there's no good chemical reaction between the two of you, don't go there. Don't find someone else. Also, surround yourself with people that build you up. So avoid negative personalities. Personalities that will tell you, you will not be successful, you will fail, blah, 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 blah. Don't go there. Just focus on people that build you up. Become surrounded by people who have achieved more than you have. So such people can build you up. What is there to avoid? I'm going to make some final remarks about what not to do. There is one thing that you should not do is take things too personally. For example, we see a lot of entrepreneurs who have this fixed idea about their product and they ignore input from others. And they think they're right and they're right and they're right. But actually, they're not right, they're wrong. So the basic ideas, their basic idea is very, very good, but they need adjustment, they need input from, and they need to have an open mind regarding the input of others. And I'm not talking about a negative input, not about, again, people, negative personalities. I'm talking about people who will build you up and make your business successful. So, yes, what I would like to end with, the agreements you make with others, with other, for example, cooperations with when you rent an office, when you hire people, always ask for legal advice. It doesn't matter if it's a friend or don't think you can do it on your own. It's a very complicated and tricky field of law. I already mentioned I'm keeping the best for last. I would like to invite Yan Pieter ДЕ ЙОНГ, and he will tell you how to find the best business opportunities, and he will tell you how Microsoft is able to help you becoming a very successful and very good entrepreneur. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Дякуємо, пане Бароне. До слова запрошується Ян Пітер ДЕ ЙОНГ, регіональний директор Microsoft Україна. Тема доповіді – розширення можливостей агробізнесу. Будь ласка.
Thank you, Oksana. Thank you, Baron КВАСТ. Let me start with a little bit about myself. I was in Ukraine since 2013. I'm the general manager of Microsoft Ukraine, board of directors of MTN. I'm very close to Ukraine Startup Fund. Next time we need to use Microsoft Teams. Advisor to a couple of investment firms who have the focus of startups in Ukraine. I hope everybody can understand my English. Yes? Good. So let me go and talk a little bit about agriculture. I'm not an agriculture specialist, but I love agriculture and I love the country because it is one of the most important industries in Ukraine. The question that I got is, what agro areas should you focus on if you want to start up, if you want to set up a startup? The other question is, what value can Microsoft add to that? I'm not here to go and sell Microsoft to sell Microsoft. Forget about it. What I'm here is to open up a little bit of the eyes and help idealize with you where you can go focus on in terms of setting up your startup. So before we do that, as advisor of some of these startup investment funds, what do we look at if a startup and you need money. You want to attract investors. What do you need? So we look at what is your focus? We look at, are you unique? Do you have an idea that is unique? Are you able to differentiate yourself? Are you solving a problem with your idea? And at the end, and I think this is probably the most important thing for an investor, do you have an idea that is scalable? That is important, something you have to think about. So if you go to the next, we have to go back to, yes, the second chart, the next, yes. No, is this a second? Ooh. I missed this one. No, this one, no. Oh, okay, something went wrong there. So first of all, what we see is that agriculture is transforming. Why do we focus on what is changing in agriculture? Why do we focus on that? Because that is, every change is an opportunity for you. So, where are the changes in agriculture as we see it? First of all, regulatory landscape. We see Ukraine and Europe. There is a big association treaty, and that is helping the farmers, that is helping Ukraine to do trade, to ease trade with the European Union. And I talked to a lot of farmers. I talked to a lot of very advanced farmers here, and they complain. They say, Jan Peter, listen, we have so much regulatory change. How can you guys help us to still do business with Europe? Jan Peter, we have a farm that is ecological. But in Europe, in Canada, they don't want to pay for it. Because we are Ukraine. They don't trust our ecological certification. So this is an area where you definitely should focus on. Because it is hot. It's not only helping yourself, but at the end you contribute to Ukraine. Yeah? So that's one. The other one is, what we see, agriculture is like medicine, and it was mentioned before, it is getting more and more personalized. So we get medicine made particularly for you, for individuals. Not only you have one pharmaceutical company that is making pills for everyone on the planet. No, we get more to individualized medicine, personalized approach. And that is what the diet is going into as well. Not everybody's going to eat the same bread anymore. We already see gluten-free, but we will see that trend the next 20 years extensifying. And this is an opportunity for you. How do you connect the people that eat the food with the farmers that produce the food? Then we have genetics. Just think about CRISPR, HCP, phenotyping. That is all an input that will help the farmers optimize the crops for their fields. You will see that you will get crops designed for Ukraine fields. There will be crops that are going to be designed for the southern Ukraine fields, and those are going to be different compared to the northern ones. So these are just a couple of areas where agriculture is changing so fast that I would actually say those are the areas where, if you need to attract investors, these are the areas to focus on. So now we go to this chart. If you look at the value chain, I always love from farm to fork, right? You put seeds in the ground, and then at the end everybody's eating it. Perfect. The whole chain for me is agriculture. It is not only the farmer. It's as well the processing, and it is as well the distribution and bringing the products to the consumers. And then if we look at where do we see the inefficiencies at the moment. So think as an entrepreneur. First, you look at what part of agriculture is changing most. And be broad. Take the whole value chain. And then we go to the next, and I hope the next is good. Yeah, perfect. Where are the inefficiencies across the whole value chain? And let me stand here and not fall down, because then we can look at the slide together. So first of all, if you look at the left, we have the potential production. Yeah? And the production, we can help you. We can help the Ukrainian farmers increase the yields up to 40% at the moment. I will not rule out that we are able to help the farmers to double the yields in 20 years. How do we do that? We use precision farming, we use analytics, and we use satellite imagery to make sure that the seeds that they plant are going to be optimized for where they are going to be planted in the fields. And we are going to combine that with historical data of the fields, historical data of the crops, and we're going to help the farmer make a decision what kind of crops to see next year. We're going to help the farmer with reducing the pesticides and herbicides. We can even help to become certified ecological. And certified ecological means, if you do it in a proper way, that what was said before, and I think it was Oksana, that you can have a QR code in the shop in Germany or in Switzerland, and you can see this is a bread made with Ukrainian grain coming from that field, sown by farmer Ivan, and the seeds were put in the ground. At that moment, it was harvested. At that moment, you can find everything in that QR code, and that QR code is also blockchained, so you cannot change it. Only then Ukrainian farmers will be able to get a higher price for ecological products. So this is a very hot area for innovative products, for startups to create a lot of value. If you need investors, this is a hot spot, especially in Ukraine. And again, what I said before, I like it when something is technological available, when there is a need to help the farmers, but at the end, this is a movement that will benefit the whole country. So that is one. If we look at number 2, it is after the harvest, we have from production to consumer. That is where we see typically a 30 to 50% loss of value. This is again an area where if you're able, with your ideas, all this scientific value that you learn at the university, that you apply in institutes here, you can apply that as well to reduce the loss, the value reduction from consumer to production. That's an area where definitely you can gain. If you want to attract investors, that is another hotspot. So if we go to the next, yes. So what can you expect from Microsoft? Well, we have technology that actually is, first of all, secure and is regulatory compliant. What does it mean? You can use it in Ukraine. If you have GDPR data, GDPR sensitive data, you can use it. And then in particular, if you look at the technologies that the farmers are using to do or to apply precision farming to increase the yield, as I was mentioning before, you need data, you need to start to measure. All this data need to be analyzed. You need artificial intelligence to go and find patterns, to go and help you make decisions. You need machine learning to get better at that. And these are the tools that are available and that are available for all the farmers. So what we do, we are working with institutes, with ministries, we are working with some of the bigger farmers, but also we want to go with the smaller farmers in the regions and create small collectives where we educate them on these initiatives that maybe only cost a little bit, 10K euros or dollars, and then they can start using some satellite imagery, they can start using a drone collectively, they can gather data, and then they can start to optimize their production. So that is one of the areas where Microsoft is adding the value. And if you look now at this Farmer's Edge, it is a huge farm. We have a couple of huge farms here in Ukraine, but I can already tell you that those are pretty much optimized. I won't say they reach already the 140% of the yield that the field can bring, but they are significantly above the 100%. What we have to focus on are the mid-size and the smaller farmers, and especially the little, the villages where they are too small to invest themselves, but they go with groups. So what we do, we use satellite imageries in different frequency. We measure the moisture in the soil. We can measure the health of the plants. We can even measure the sap streams in trees. We can even measure from satellite how fast a tree is growing in a year. And that's not a lot, but this is how accurate what we can measure. So all this data we put in database. We have partners that did this kind of things before, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. But what you do is you need to make it locally specific. You need to make it applicable for the farmers here. With that data, you can make a map of the field, and you can see it you can see it here. This one. That map actually shows what is the dryness of the field. So then you can help the farmer, steered by satellite, GPS, steered by that, put 2 or 3 kinds of seeds instead of one. Where the seed for the normal, what he would put in normal, would probably be 80% or 70% of the field. Then areas of the field that are a little bit more moist, it gets specific seeds that are optimized for more moist. And when the parts of the field where you have a little drier, you put seeds that are optimized for that. And then you will see that you have, first of all, you leverage your fields much better. But there is another benefit. The benefit, if you optimize your seeding with this, it means that the chance that you get diseases is less as well. Because if you get a disease in the field, it starts with the more moist areas or the more dry areas, right? And if you optimize the seeds for the field, then you can actually reduce the chance that you get diseases in the field. So that is actually number one. If you reduce those chances, you can also automatically reduce pesticides and herbicides. So that's an important one. We can also then measure with the satellite the health of the crop. And again, it's multi-frequency, so it's not only visible light, but it can also check the temperature of each individual plant, and then it can kind of check how well is the crop doing. From that, you can actually see if there are areas in the field that start to get sick. If you get a cold, it starts with one cough. So the satellite gets that one cough, and then you can actually help reduce first of all, the farmer will go there and check it by himself, and then you can start to apply pesticide and herbicide, whatever is needed, to reduce that disease. At the moment, still you see a lot, when there is a disease, first of all, farmer spots it too late, and when it's too late, they have to spray the whole field. And sometimes even the neighbor farmers need to spray as well, because they are afraid we get the same disease. So this is something that you can easily reduce by getting the right data and getting the right amount of data and at the right moment. So that is actually, and to be honest, I can talk about this for weeks because we have so many of these use cases. We can apply it to pig farms, to cows as well. They get the step meters on the leg, and with that we can actually see if the cow is more healthy or less healthy. We see if, for instance, if you want specific kind of milk, then you can kind of help the cows to walk more or less. So this is everything that you can do with all this big data. And it is up to you. It's up to the entrepreneurs who come with the ideas and are brave enough to say, you know what, guys, let me go and help the farmers with this. Start up your own company. So let's go to the next. Yes, water management. I just want to say, and I don't know if I have time, but this is an idea that is very close to my heart, and we've been discussing it with the government as well. Irrigation, water management. You can do exactly the same with the methodology that we had before on should I go and irrigate my fields, yes or no. And you know what, in some areas in Ukraine, there is enough water. In some areas, there's not enough water, so that's a very important one. But even in the areas where there is a lot of water, and one good friend of mine is a farmer, he has enough water, but he said, Jan Pieter, if you can help me reduce the amount of irrigation, that would be awesome because I'm spending, and I forgot, 100,000 liters of diesel for part of my fields per year. Can you imagine? Just to fuel the pumps for the irrigation. So water management is hyper important. It's good for environment. Think now about the following. You create, and we have the plans, you create it in the newspaper, the new irrigation system. It's very important where you get the water from. So we have the Carpats, we have Dnieper, we have the swamps in the northwest. So we have all these areas, right? We know them. You've probably been there. And if you look at where should you tap from? In the past, we just tapped the easiest way, right? That is not always the most clever way, because it could harm some area, it could harm Carpats, etc. One of the things that I learned, I talked to somebody in Canada who was managing the forests in the southwest of Canada. They saw that a lot of trees died. And they had no clue why. Was it acid rain? Was it maybe diseases? Was it water? So they asked Microsoft, can you help us? And we said, maybe, we don't know. But we have technology that can give you insight. So what they did, they had satellite. We hired a satellite company. They made images. They tagged all the trees in that area. You know, Canada, they have a lot of trees, right? Hundreds of millions. All the trees got a name. We gave them a name. And then we checked, quarter by quarter, the health of that tree. Again, using different kind of frequencies. And then we saw very interesting patterns, because we also checked the acidity of the rain, we checked if pesticides were used, herbicides were used in the fields, we checked the water levels in the big rivers, in small rivers, in the canals, in the little streams. And we found something that was really, really interesting. I think people could not have found this pattern, but AI algorithms, they found the water level in the little stream, when that went down tiny little bit, it was impacting the trees. And then we could start to manage, and we said maybe we should not get the water for irrigation for the farmers from this resource, but from that resource. And that is actually how we start to get better insight in why trees died, and now we can actually effectively and proactively manage to prevent that more trees are going to die. So this is actually, if we are rebuilding the irrigation system in Ukraine, we have to keep this in mind. It's a complex situation. It's not only for farmers, it's not only for the villages, but think as well about your nature reserves. Think about the trees. Think about the swamplands. And you have to take that all into account. So actually I want to stop here. The last point I want to say is, as you know, we work very close with startups in Ukraine. We put more than 20 million US dollars in the startups in the last 10 years, so that's significant. How do we do that? We educate, we help you with setting up your business, we help you with business plan, we help you with the proper tooling, we can help you with connecting, building up a good network, we can help you finding investors, we can help you to set up your company such that it can be scaled, it can grow. And I think that is what you can expect from us. What I would add as a final note, Ukraine is an awesome country to be a startup. I talked to a huge amount of startups. There is a lot of money flowing in the country to help you guys run your business, set up your business. You have a good plan, create your network, start to build the ideas, and especially if you are going to focus on agriculture in this country, I think it is the perfect combination.
Дякую, пане Яне, за цікаву лекцію. Є запитання? Доктор філософії з економіки Владислав Лазаренко.
First of all, I want to say a huge thank you to both of you. That it was really interesting. My questions are to you. First of all, have you ever had some cooperation with any states from Ukraine? Maybe it's government, maybe it's any state enterprise. And second is, could you please give us some particular Ukrainian example? And the last question is, your personal estimation, is the Switzerland investment ready to invest in Ukrainian economy? Thanks.
Thank you for your questions. So, we have not ever dealt with state companies. We always deal with private companies. We deal with states, with governmental institutions, for example, ministries, etc. But we don't deal with state companies. So we deal with private companies only. But that is not, I'm not saying that we will not ever do that. We haven't done that. What I see about my knowledge about Ukraine is Ukraine has a very enormous potential, human potential. You have a lot of very intelligent, very good, very active young people who are really willing and are able to create a very successful business on an international level as well. So it should not be, again, I mentioned, go internationally. It is absolutely doable. It's the mentality of the people, the young people now, is very, very impressive. They have a huge knowledge, a very good focus, and a very pleasant way of communicating. So the last question was, have I ever dealt with companies in Ukraine? Once I had dealings with was very much impressed by an IT, a computer company, which a software company, which was very, very professional. It was also a startup, they had an international focus. So they were working in Ukraine. The company was located in Ukraine. They had a very international focus, and they started small, but they have clients now all over the world. So that's my opinion about the Ukraine. It has an enormous potential. Enormous potential. Thank you.
And some questions, couple of questions for you. First is how often Ukrainian farmers ask you to develop some soft? And second, does someone from government ask you to make some soft? And the last one is more for my personal interest. How Ukraine can cope with digital periods?
Digital pillars?
Yes.
Let me see. First of all, how often Ukraine farmers? So agriculture is a priority for Microsoft. We have a huge amount of activities in agriculture, and we not only talk about farmers with, but about different kind of farmers. So it's, farmers for animals, farmers for plants. We even start to look now at if we grow trees, if trees are being grown. So yes, we have the biggest farmers as our day-to-day customers, and they have often a lot of questions. So I would say we work with farmers on a daily basis. The second is government. Yes, I don't know if you are aware, but we signed memorandum with the government, Ukraine government. We're very close with Ukraine government. The bottom line of that one is that we want the Ukrainian government to build a trusted service to the citizens and to the farmers. And trusted in this case means secure, available, and compliant to regulation, compliant already to GDPR, because we know GDPR is coming in Ukraine. I'm very happy to see that. So yes, with government we work. We even, and I forgot the ministry, I think it was Food Safety, Consumer Protection, but it can also be Ministry of Agriculture. We are going to organize a hackathon, so that will be definitely interesting for all of you. When they decide the date, I will post it on LinkedIn, and Microsoft Ukraine also has a Facebook page, so that is interesting. 2 weeks ago, I signed with the Minister of Ecology and Natural Resources a memorandum as well, where we in particular also going to look at how to improve the irrigation and how to help Ukraine as a country and to become better and maintain the extreme beauty that we see here. So the third question I missed.
Yes.
What was the third question?
About digital periods.
Oh, digital pirates.
I know it's a huge problem of Ukraine.
Yes, it is. Well, you know what? I can be very short about that. For Microsoft, but also for the government, security is one of the most important topics at the moment. Just look at geopolitical tensions. We need to be secure. We should use Microsoft Teams. Let me be very clear about that. No. It's not because I want to sell it. And by the way, everything that is research and education is free. So what I want to say here is that if you use pirated products, you can run a risk of security. And that is very important, and I just want to highlight that. If you want to run that risk, up to you.
Thank you. And I want to make some conclusion. So now the Microsoft of Ukraine is making some software, because I was 5 years ago in Microsoft office of Ukraine, and the chief manager said that on those time, and it's their words, Microsoft of Ukraine deal only with customer support, not making of software. So now you say that Microsoft of Ukraine making software.
Oh, let me clarify this. So we work with our customers through partners. We have 1,200 partners in Ukraine. Some partners are specialized in agriculture and they know how to farm. Some partners are specialized in irrigation. They know everything about irrigation. They did those projects in other countries as well. Our products are there to enable the Ukraine farmers to achieve more. That is also one of those things. We fuel the innovation. We create a network. We create also a network with the startups so that the startups can become successful. At the end, it is not about Microsoft. It is all about you. It's all about the farmers. We are just enablers. So we create software that even now is getting democratized. What does it mean? Democratized means that the farmer can use the product and that the farmer doesn't need expensive specialists to change it. If you want to get insight, we have business intelligence applications that can visualize your data. And you don't need a $100 per hour specialist to do that for you. If you can use Excel, this visualization of the data is easier than using Excel. So that is what we try to do. We bring the power to the people. We bring the power to the organization. But again, I don't want to make this about Microsoft. It is about the farmers. It is about you. It is about the startups. We are just humble. We are just an enabler.
Thanks a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Cannot hear you.
I'd like to ask both speakers. My first question for the speaker.
We cannot hear you.
And now?
Yeah.
So my first question will be about the roadmap. For me personally, the vital question is transition from the idea itself to business mindset, or business thinking. It's vital for me because here in Ukraine we used to think that if you want to be successful, you should work a lot. If you want to get more money, you should work harder. But nowadays we can hear something like, if you wanna be successful, you should make your money work while you're sleeping, or something like the hard work on a farm was a horse, but it's never become a farmer. So, what's your personal opinion? Is it possible to develop that business mindset? Or is it something we should work with? And if it is possible, what's the roadmap for that very first step?
Thank you very much for the question. So, of course, some people have a talent for becoming an entrepreneur and some people don't. That's the truth. So if you lack any talent, if you are totally uninterested in entrepreneurship, you will never become an entrepreneur. If you are interested in becoming an entrepreneur, if you really want to, there's always the possibility. So becoming an entrepreneur doesn't you don't need a lot of intelligence to become an entrepreneur. So it's actually changing this mindset. It's perhaps the most important thing. I started with the mindset. Is the change of mindset from scientist to entrepreneur. It is something you can develop. If you want it, you can develop it. You can actually start by, for example, looking at a very simple shop. Very simple shop in your neighborhood, supermarket or any grocery shop, and ask yourself, why is this shop attracting clients? What is the business model? How much money is this shop earning? If I go to a restaurant, it's a kind of addiction. If I go to a restaurant, I think, so I see the price of the menu of a certain delicatessen or a certain drink, and I think, okay, so this particular Coca-Cola, it will cost, for example, 50 cents to buy. It needs this restaurant needs to be, the premises needs to be hired. The staff needs to be paid. So how many Coca-Colas do you need to sell to become profitable? So those simple, this is very basic. If you start exercising your mind like that, you will become a very successful entrepreneur. Start with the simplest of the simplest examples. Don't think about how Microsoft is making their money. It's too complicated. So think about very simple ways. So Professor Hunsinger is, for example, is a very successful entrepreneur. And you mentioned earlier, do you need to work very hard to become a successful entrepreneur? I know for a fact that Professor Hunsinger is working 24/7, and he's a very successful entrepreneur. So probably there's a relation between the two of them. Thank you for your answer, your question.
Thank you very much. And my second question will be for the next speaker, second one. The question is, as we are not agricultural producers here, we're scientists, and you were spoken about farmers mostly, yes? So do you have any projects with scientific institutions? For example, you told us about forests in Canada, and in Ukraine, the vast majority of woodland, it's state land. Do you have any projects, for example, for woodlands or any non-private businesses to provide information, maybe potential information for users for the future? For example, for forests or maybe other lands.
Yes, as I said before, we work with the Ministry of Environment, and we are working with a couple of farmers on optimizing how they farm, and those can be in a similar direction as what I just mentioned. There are a lot of projects that are about optimizing the whole process, the whole chain between farm and fork. If you look, for instance, at one of the issues that we see and that a lot of our customers see is a shortage of human resources. Economy is actually going pretty well in Ukraine. We see that there is a significant shortage of specific resources, and we help farms, government entities to optimize such a way that they can do more with less people. Is it addressing your question good enough, or?
Yes.
Дякую. Дякую. Немає більше запитань? Немає. Дякую.
Я хочу подякувати нашим спікерам, пану Барону ЮХТЕРу і Яну Пітеру ДЕ ЙОНГу за чудові лекції. Це дуже хороша практика для наших молодих вчених, для тих, хто вже є докторами філософії, і тих, хто тільки готується. Для старшого, зрілого покоління наших вчених це була ще одна практика згадати те, чого ми не довчили в школі. Тому що навіть у чаті я бачила, що писали, що не все розуміють, але дякую пану Олексію Тищенку за те, що він люб'язно нам надав матеріали і англійською, і українською мовою. Дякую. Професор Моріц, хоче сказати? Все, дякую професору Моріцу, дякую Борису Кожину за те, що приділили увагу і дали можливість такої поважної зустрічі для наших вчених, для нашого інституту і для наших гостей в онлайні. Ті, хто не зміг долучитися до офлайн зустрічі. Дякую. І запрошуємо до співпраці. Дякуємо дуже. Ще є прохання зробити спільне фото на пам'ять. Дякую.